show of hands, who here loves music? Oh, me too. Hey, 2 hands, all right. If you had to choose, and I'm going to make you choose, if you had to choose, what's your favorite style of music? Rock music? One lone hand. Okay, a couple. Classical music? Okay, country? Rap? Doesn't matter. We all love music, right? So that's incredible. So another question for you, one final question. Where did the music you love come from? Did it ooze out of the pen of your favorite composer, inspired by Apollo and the Muses? Or did a dove land on your shoulder and whisper in your ear like Pope Gregory the Great in the 6th century? Now, I'm not opposed to divine intervention. Frankly, I think I could use some right now. But I think the music you love came to you and came to us in a much more human way. Through hard work, through joy, through sorrow, through love, death, through the best that humanity has to offer, and to the worst, sadly, that humanity can perpetrate on itself oftentimes. Now that I've got you thoroughly bummed out and doubting Apollo's influence on Justin Bieber, let's talk about some things. Okay, it's very difficult to talk about music, all of music, in 18 minutes or less. So let's kind of refine it a little bit and make it a little bit more digestible. Let's talk about American music. And in particular, let's talk about the influence of the blues on American music. Okay? So what I want to do first is, so we have a common language, I want to just sit at the piano and demonstrate a couple things so we're all speaking the same language. So there are 3 primary elements of music. There's several elements, but there are 3 primary elements of music: rhythm, melody, and harmony. Okay? Rhythm. Let's all do this together. Let's all clap a beat, if you will. Ah, yeah, you're very good. Good. Keep that going. Now, we can call those quarter notes at a certain tempo. I'm going to do 8th notes now. Okay. Very good. Very nice. Oh, you did that too. Very nice. Very nice. So, rhythm is the most primal element of music. And it's organized in measures or bars. We use those terms kind of interchangeably. And that's a way of kind of getting our arms around how to organize things. Okay? Let's do one more rhythm, and I want you to hang on to this one. Nice, very good. Now, melody is the linear element of music. It's basically what you sing in the shower. So it's one note after another, moving through time. Okay? Now, we wouldn't have melody if we didn't have rhythm. Okay? You need rhythm to have melody. Okay? So, the other aspect of music that I want to talk about is harmony. And in Western classical music, and that's kind of the system within which we all work, we have grown to build these chords, the vertical element of music, in thirds. So if I take that same scale, that C major scale, which is common in Western classical music, okay, I'm just stacking in thirds now, moving up the same scale, okay? So, the first chord, there's a quality to that. That's a major chord. Second, minor. Third, minor. The fourth, major. Fifth, major. Sixth, minor. 7, diminished. Ooh, I'm going to tie you to a railroad track and twist my mustache in black and white films. Back to the one chord with its major again, okay? We could do minor, but we're just going to stay with major right now. So those are the 3 primary building blocks of music. There's also texture, there's also dynamics, there's also pitch, there's also timbre. Timbre is tone color. What makes a trumpet sound like a trumpet and a clarinet sound like a clarinet? And then there's form as well. Okay? So now, culturally, when we're talking about the blues, and we're talking about American popular music, it comes from the clashing of two separate cultures. It comes when Western European culture clashes with West African culture, sadly, by way of the slave trade and oftentimes moving through the Caribbean. So we have to think about these things in very human terms. When one set of people is stripped of everything they know, stripped of their humanity, stripped of their language, stripped of their culture, stripped of their religion, their food, their music, their musical instruments, everything, it's beyond comprehension. However, what happens through these hundreds of years in this country, is we see the power of resilience, the power of adaptation, and the power of the development of a brand new cultural aesthetic. When West African sonorities and West African traditions were mashed up inside the Western classical musical tradition, a new form emerges, and that's the blues. That's the blues. So I need to demonstrate a little bit again about some of the aspects of the blues that we hear and talk about. So the blues is really difficult to define because the blues is simultaneously a feeling. We all get the blues. We know what that means. Sadness, melancholy. The blues is also a sound. It's also an aesthetic. And it's also a formal structure. It's incredibly simple, and it's incredibly complex. It's all these things wrapped together, much like humanity. So some very basic things to talk about right now. When we're talking about the blues, the one thing we oftentimes think about is the sound of the blues, the blue notes, if you will. Some of the older musicians back in the day used to call it the notes between the notes. Now, in Western classical parlance, it's the minor third on top of the major third, but boring, right? It's the sound we want to hear. Right? We know that sound. Okay? Another thing that we need to be aware of is this ostinato, a bass ostinato. And it can be as simple as this. And you can do a lot of things on top of that. You can build and build and build and get much more complex. That can get more complex as well. We also have call and response. And this is something that, in Western classical music, you say, Bud Bryant. There's call and response in Western classical music, antecedent, consequent phrasing. Yes, it's something very typical to all musics, but very particular in the West African tradition and in the blues, where I would say something and you would say it back to me. Hey, Bo Diddley. Hey, Bo Diddley. Yeah, I didn't have to, you just did it. You just knew what to do, all right? Also, the blues brings to us various effects, growling, buzzing, different kinds of sonorities that we didn't have in Western classical music. The melisma. There's melisma in opera too. That's where you sing many notes on one vowel. We hear that oftentimes at ends of phrases and things. And then blues is also a formal structure. Okay? There are 8-bar blueses. There are 12-bar blueses, 16-bar blueses, 24-bar blueses, blueses with bridges, all kinds of forms. But the most common one that we kind of recognize is the 12-bar blues. And that's going to be, in its most simple form, be derived of the 3 major chords, the 1, the 4, and the 5 in Western classical music. So we've all heard this kind of thing before. Right? 1950s. Think about Hound Dog. Think about Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash, right? Think about Black and White by Michael Jackson, okay? Think about Sunshine of Your Love by Cream. I could go on and on. There are so many tunes written, okay, on the blues form, okay? So we see that. Now, when we think about the blues and where it goes, we also have to remember that the spiritual was growing up side by side with the blues. One is praying for freedom here on earth. One is praying for freedom above. So we see these things happening simultaneously. And we have the great use of the plagal cadence. Right? Amen. Right? The 4 chord going to the 1 chord. It's the heart of the blues. The most, can be profane and got the devil on the one shoulder, the blues. And then there's also the spiritual. You got the angel on the other shoulder. Side by side. What is that? That's humanity. So when we think about the blues and its influence on American popular music, we have to think about the blues when it touches other styles. All new forms begin to develop. Okay? At the turn of the 19th century, Louisiana, and in particular New Orleans, is the center of jazz. Okay? Because of its multi-ethnic makeup and all that went into that gumbo down in New Orleans. As the music moves up the river to Chicago, it takes on a much more sophisticated style. And then we also get to hear this music for the first time because recording technology exists. We get to hear Louis Armstrong. We get to hear Kid Oliver. We get to hear Sidney Bechet. And we get to hear Robert Johnson as well. In the 1930s, the music grows. The instrumental size of the ensemble grows. And we get Duke Ellington and Fletcher Henderson. And jazz settles in New York. Okay. At the same time, the blues touches what was known as hillbilly music and becomes country music. In the 1940s, tastes change. The war ends. Big bands start to wane. And we see a new, more rugged style of blues develop called rhythm and blues. Okay. In the 1950s, in the 40s, straddling that time period, we see the blues touch the Appalachian Mountains and mix with Celtic, Scottish, Anglo folk music, and it becomes bluegrass. In the 50s, rhythm and blues and country merge, and we get rock and roll. Also in the 50s, we see Ray Charles merge the sacred and the profane. We see him take gospel music and mix it with rhythm and blues, and we get soul music. Later in that decade, we see soul give way to funk music. We see that music feed back completely and go to Africa and become Afrobeat. In the early 70s, late 60s, we hear that music in Jamaica, and it's turned into ska, reggae, and dub. And then in the late 70s and early 80s, we get these wild guys in the Bronx mixing and scratching and looping, and hip-hop and rap are born. And it goes on and on and on and on. The influence of the blues on American popular music is so vast, and by extension, it's influenced music around the world. So the next time you're listening to your favorite music, whether it's Beyonce, Bad Bunny, Elvis, Johnny Cash, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Ozzy, anything, you are listening to the blues. So, the next time you put your record on, showing my age, next time you put your records on, listen deeply, listen intently, and I suspect you'll hear something that you haven't heard before. Thank you very much.